Hi, David.
Hi, Nadira.
What is resilience and how does it help an organization to cope with risk?
We hear this word resilience a lot, don't we? Organizational resilience, business resilience, and so on. Resilience means the ability to bounce back after you've had a shock, something to the system which causes an impact, causes deformation. So you might have, when you have stress, have you seen those little stress balls that you can squeeze? And you squeeze it and it gets very small and you let go and it just comes back how it was before. That's resilience, bounce back ability. So how does an organization become resilient? What it means is that if there is a shock to the system, a shock to the organization, some external unexpected event which deforms or crushes the organization in some area, reduces it, then when that shock is removed, how quickly will it recover so it's able to function fully afterwards? So this includes things like maybe like fires and floods, things like sickness, epidemics of diseases. It might include civil unrest. It might include political changes. It may include something major in the regulatory environment where something is suddenly changed. There are a number of things that could have a major impact on our organization, which restrict our ability to function in the way that we used to function. And when those things are gone, the question is, are we crushed and we can't recover, or can we get up and go again, and how quickly can we do that? So resilience is the ability to regain full functionality after something has been a shock to the system, which has impacted our ability to perform. Now, how do we build or how do we ensure organizational resilience? There are two risk-related disciplines for this. One is called business continuity. The other is called disaster recovery. Really, I think they're very similar. Some people see them as separate. I see them as part of the same thing. Maybe business continuity is more general and disaster recovery is specific to disaster type scenarios. But really, the goal is the same. Something happens and we need to recover and then we need to continue. So disaster recovery and business continuity are the disciplines that we would use for that. And the way it's related to risk is that risk is a proactive discipline which looks ahead. We've talked about a forward-looking radar that scans the future. And so we need to be thinking about the sorts of things that could happen to our organization so that we're prepared. The problem with disaster recovery or for these kind of shocks to the system is often they're things that we can't see in advance, that we don't know exactly where they're coming from. You can't tell where or when there's going to be civil unrest or whether there might be a flood or a fire. And so both disaster recovery and business continuity focus not on the triggering event, but on recovering from the impact. So we're saying something might happen, which means that we lose our IT capability overnight. Or something might happen, which means that half of the workforce are unable to get to work. And so it might be that the thing that happens with the IT capability is a power surge that puts out all of our generators. Or it might be that there's some major hacking event and somebody hacks into our computers and introduces a virus and shuts it all down. It might be on the worker side that there's a breakdown in the transport system. Or it may be that there's a pandemic of some terrible disease and they all get sick. Or there may be a strike, which means that we can't get into work. It doesn't matter what it is. What we do with disaster recovery and business continuity is we say, if something happens, and it doesn't matter what that is, and we lose our IT system, what will we do? If something happens and half our people can't get to work, what would we do? And the reason that it's a risk discipline is that we're looking ahead at the potential impacts. We're thinking of all the things that could affect our operations or our ability to perform, no matter where they come from. And then we're planning recovery plans or contingency plans for each of those types of things. And so it's really important for an organization to be able to cope with unforeseen risks or emergent risks, to have good continuity planning and disaster recovery in place. Now, the good thing about continuity planning is that it copes with anything unexpected. Usually, continuity planning is done at the organizational level. Let's say it's called business continuity planning for a reason, because it allows us to keep the business operating. But actually, continuity planning as an idea can be applied anywhere in the organization and even outside the organization. So we could say, let's say for a project, we're talking about managing risk within a project, and we have risk management processes and risk registers, and we identify project risks, and we plan responses for those and so on. What about things that we didn't foresee in our project? We could have project continuity management, where we say, it doesn't matter what happens, but if something happens, which means that all our suppliers resign or go out of business, I can't imagine what that would be, but if something happened, how would we cope? Do we have a contingency plan for losing all of our suppliers? Or if we find that all of our key management team on the project suddenly become unavailable, they either all get some disease, or they all have food poisoning, or they're all killed in a bus accident, or some disaster. Whatever happens, how would we cope with losing the management team of the project? And so you can have continuity planning and continuity management in the project environment. You could have it in the HR environment, or in the safety environment, or in the finance department. So continuity planning as an idea, I think, needs to be much broader than just the overall business continuity planning, and it can be applied right across the organisation. It could also be applied, of course, at a society level, or a national level, or at a personal level, but those are outside of the scope of our discussion here around businesses. So continuity planning and disaster recovery are a way of dealing with emergent or unforeseen risks and enabling us to recover as quickly as possible, which is why they're techniques for building resilience.
David, if we go back to resilience, what are the things in an organization that could drive or can drive resilience?
The first thing is to have a clear sense of identity, to have strong values, strong culture, to make sure that we know what our core operations are. We know who we are and why we exist. So if something happens which causes a major impact, because we have a strong identity, we know what it is we have to recover to. We know who we are, what we're rebuilding. So that strong organizational identity and values are really important. To have good people who we know we can trust and we can rely on, who are committed to the organisation at all levels, who won't walk away when things get difficult. That's another key contributor to resilience. So capable people who are committed to the organisation and its values and its operations. Then to have processes and procedures which are flexible. So they don't always have to follow step A, then step B, then C, D. If necessary, we could go from A to D if we had to very quickly, because the situation has changed. And then maybe we would recover and do B and C later on. So clear sense of identity and values, an organisational culture, capable and committed people, and flexible processes, I think, will be probably the three key things that build resilience in an organisation.
That was very interesting, David. Thank you very much.
Thank you.